So in all these wild times, was alcohol involved in any of it?
It was for my parents.
Hmm.
My mom wasn't a huge drinker at the time growing up. My dad, he was, but it was kind of spaced out a lot of times. He was a cop,
Hmm.
and cops,
Hmm.
that was a
Work
thing.
hard, party
Work
hard.
hard, party hard, kind of thing. Yeah, alcohol didn't become anything really for me until I was like 17, I think. I was in high school. And it was just, I was on the football team, so, we might, have some beers or whatever on the weekends. But it wasn't a major part of my life at all. My concentration was I wanted to get out and see the world.
Hmm.
So, that's when I went to the Navy. And that's kind of when I got into my wilder scene of going out to the clubs and partying while I wasn't working and stuff and drinking a lot. And um, I was just letting loose until my father had retired from the police department. And the night before, they had a great party, had a good time. Um, and then I get the phone call from my brother. Mom's in the hospital, doesn't look good.
Wow.
And she was 49 years old. Um, and I mean, I kind of recognized that it did, but I guess I didn't pay it enough attention. I was more worried about me being out and about and traveling and all this other stuff. Um, I didn't know it had gotten to that level. So my mom, I was able to get an emergency flight up, and then the next day, we just took her off the life support.
Wow.
What happened?
Um, what they think is that she had an aneurysm
Uh,
Hmm.
and that she fell and hit her head either on the toilet or the bathtub. So um, when I came home, and my father, the house was a mess. It was a mess. Um, Alcohol had obviously taken a huge, made a huge impact on them. And so trying to deal with my father, he was a basket case, and it was kind of crazy because I'm like, oh, look at this guy who's I've always looked at strong, hard,
Hmm.
nothing phases him kind of thing. Well, I didn't know how much he was suffering from addiction. So I stayed for a couple of weeks, went back to Florida, and then I get another phone call that my father's in the hospital. And so I came back up August 1st, and he passed away August 8th.
Wow.
And
So they're
again,
both.
so they're both 49 years old. His was just the ammonia levels, his liver, and just, yeah, he was just shot. And so I was angry about that for a while. And that affected my addiction.
Hmm.
Um, so I wasn't a daily drinker, but when I did drink, it was, I was pretty much on fire. I didn't have an off switch.
I remember you sharing with me about understanding what I just went through a couple months ago with
Mm-hmm.
both my parents passing, well, within 48 hours of each other. Divorced 40 years, passed within 48, but they were 88 and 87,
Mm-hmm.
not 49.
Right.
And how old were you at the time?
27.
27.
Oh,
27.
Mm.
ouch.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, you always think your parents are going to be there,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
and I'm out enjoying the world. I've been in Australia, I've been to Hong Kong, I've been to Singapore, I've been to Hawaii a couple times. I'm
Mm-hmm.
living it up, and then all that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, thank you.
So after you're dealing with all this, what happens to you?
So I just kind of, I don't know, I was lost, honestly. I really was.
You stayed in Connecticut, or did
I
you go
stayed
back
in
to Florida?
Connecticut. I was initially staying with my middle brother, but that just didn't work out very well.
Mm-hmm.
So I had moved back into my parents' house.
And you're working the whole time?
Actually, no, I didn't get a job until October.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a security supervisor working subcontracted through the state, doing armed and unarmed security. And it was kind of a mindless job, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it was something to do. And work was work. I was working a lot of hours. I've always worked a lot of hours, which
Hmm.
also did not play well into me handling my addictions in my life and managing stuff. And so back in 2006 or so, I separated. I was never married to my son's mother. We separated, and That was a hot mess too. But then I met my wife shortly thereafter, and she got pregnant.
And Ashley's born.
Ashley's born. So I wasn't like a daily drinker. My thing was I could go a couple weeks, I could go a couple months, but then I like to say it's if you remember the old Daffy Duck cartoon, you know, pouring gunpowder down your throat and nitroglycerin and then uranium-238 and then with this match. Well, that was me every couple weeks. So I didn't start out being like really mean and rude and stuff like that, but it got to the point in later years where that's what it was. It was just like I want to drink to escape because I had I just felt like I didn't have anybody to talk to. You know, even though I had friends at work, it just when you don't, you just don't want to share your inner thoughts and your inner feelings and your frustrations and your whatever the case may be. So I'd be on my front porch, you know, reading my book, smoking and drinking. You know, and that's kind of what I would do. But then there were times too where I'd, you know, walk down the street to the bar and, you know, then walk back.
It's amazing to think. Well, I've never heard. Maybe I've heard it, but it resonates with me when you said, "I felt like I didn't have anyone to talk to."
Right.
There's a lot in that statement, because I know you now to be
Very
like to
chatty.
talk. Yeah,
I do
you
like to chat.
talk,
I
you
do
know.
like to talk now.
So, but to feel like you don't have anyone to talk to, that's really almost very selfish in a lot of ways too. To think of, because I relate to that. So I'm thinking like, why would I ever go to the point where I felt like I didn't have anyone to talk to? And that's just isolation, right? It's a symptom of isolation where our disease wants to isolate us and make us, well, no one wants to talk to me and I don't want to talk to anyone, so F it, you know, and I'm just, this is good. I'll drink, I'll smoke, I'll sit here and read my book and see a world.
Exactly. And that's how it was.
Wow.
You know, and it was a lot of stuff too where, you know, where my wife would ask me, and I wish that I'd opened up back then when she had asked me, like, you know, how was your day? And I'm like, you don't really want to know how my day went. You know, do you want me to tell you about the small child that I was doing CPR carrying out of the apartment, trying to, you know, that died? You know what I mean? Like there's just a lot of stuff.
That sounds like you see that in a lot of TV shows. You know, where the marriage is the wife wants to talk to the husband about, and then the husband says that almost exactly that. Do you really want me to tell you about your day? You don't want to hear about my day. Right.
But she did. She did want to hear about it.
Yeah.
You know, but I wasn't open to it. I wasn't willing, you know, and I wasn't being, you know, honest with myself at all. It was just, you know, it's funny, you know, honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. Well, I didn't have any of that, which is different now. But it was, you know, it definitely put a big strain on our relationship. And so my wife, again, fast forward a couple of years, because it's just like I'd have my bouts of, you know, drinking a couple of days in a row. We ended up buying a house. And then 2 days later, my youngest daughter was at a birthday party, and it was less than a mile from the house, and I had been drinking. And I don't know to this day why I got in the car and went to go pick her up. And then coming back to the house, I got into an accident. I got a DUI, got arrested.
Your daughter, was she hurt or not hurt?
She had some marks on her face from the airbag.
Yeah.
And actually, I'll tell you the whole story with what happened that night. So I got arrested. They released me, I don't know how long after. And when I got back to the house, everybody's, of course, upset and yelling at me and everything else. So I took off. I ran.
Yeah.
I would have.
I don't blame you.
And I ran to, you know, I don't know how far the bar is, but it was a bar restaurant. And my wife found me there, brought me back home. And there was more yelling and screaming and upset. So I went to a bar further away.
Sounds logical.
Yeah.
Only for us in recovery, that sounds logical.
Because I was pretty much very, very upset with myself, and how could I do this, and this isn't me, and you know, it was just, there were so many emotions, and So I went to the bar and got blackout drunk because I don't remember how I got home, other than my wife telling me that one of the police officers that knew me had brought me home, and it's just like, what is going on? You know, is he okay? Like, I've never ever seen him like this, because I hid my drinking pretty well.
Yeah.
I did. You know, I've had friends that, you know, like, oh my God, like, you know, if I'd only known. I'm like,
I didn't want you to know.
I didn't
Yeah.
want you to know. That's why
Me
you
too.
didn't know.
I was very good at it. In fact,
Yeah.
Phil's sister, who I was friends with, thought I was pretending to be an alcoholic when I got into recovery so that I'd fit in with his group. Now, I am
Gotcha.
codependent, but not that codependent.
Gotcha.
But I had the same ability. I hid. Wasn't so much that I didn't drink with people, but the minute I felt that I was going to be drunk, I got the heck out of there.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wanted to go to a hospital where nobody knew me,
Mm-hmm.
which backfired. My life was a mess.
Also, you went to for.
For help. I
Did
needed
you know
help.
you were an alcoholic? Did you use that term or?
I never used that term.
Yeah.
I went through most of my life, you know, being very prideful.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nobody's going to break me. You're not, you know, I don't care what you
Alcohol
say.
won't break
Alcohol's
me.
not going to break me. I got this. You know, all the, you know, things that we tell ourselves about, you know, trying to reason with our disease that just never pans out, never works out well. And I don't even, not even that day that I went to the hospital did I refer to myself as an alcoholic. I just knew that I needed help, and I couldn't do it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never heard of CCAR.
What did you need help for, though? Did you even know that? Just
I
you
think
were a mentally emotional mess, or was
Yes.
it physical?
I was mentally and emotionally a mess,
Yeah.
a hot mess.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of stuff that feelings and emotions that I didn't know, like, how to deal with them, and I didn't even like properly recognize them.
Yeah, I'm surprised with all your EMT experience, all those years that you brought yourself to a hospital.
Yeah.
Huh.
You would have. I've had people say, like, you know, why didn't you know better before?
No, not that part. The part
Right.
that
Oh, as far as to go
that
get
you
help.
would go like to an emergency department or something to get help for that. But I don't know if a lot of people think that the emergency department is the place to go for like an emotional or mental or crisis of some kind.
Oh, it was definitely an emotional crisis.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely
Good for
emotional
you.
crisis.
I mean, I think that's good for you.
Yeah, and it took a lot. It really took a lot.
You talk about being in the Navy and the EMT, and you've had to demonstrate bravery probably many times and demonstrate courage. But that was a pretty courageous move you made that morning.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took a lot. It did.
Mm-hmm.
So my last drink was December 9th, 2019,
Mm-hmm.
and it was 4 nips of Crown Royal.
Mm-hmm. You might as well get the good stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I didn't want to get the 99-cent ones. I was like, nah, if I'm going to sit here and, you know, be in the hospital.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was desperate. I was emotionally drained. I couldn't believe what I had done. I couldn't believe where I was at in my life. It was just raging emotions, and it was the best way to describe it, I think, was like 100 different hamsters going 100 different directions at 100 miles an hour.
So what did it look like on December 10th for you?
I think it was 2 in the morning, 2:30 in the morning, whatever it was. I got there at 4:30 in the morning. The person who met me at the facility was very nice, very calm, checked me in and everything.
Where'd you go, or do you want to say?
I could say I went to AdCare in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I slept. I slept a lot.
Tired.
Yeah. No, I was beat. Like, it was just, like, it was finally like, I'm caught. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm finally somewhere
Almost
where...
like a relief.
Yes, it was a huge relief.
Yeah.
It was a huge relief.
Mm-hmm.
So I had some very good caregivers that I'm actually still in contact with. One of them, Holly, she made sure that when she was on duty, she would always, you know, come in and check, make sure I'm still breathing, save me lunch and stuff like that, or dinner, or whatever the case. And so that's 6 days of, you know, you got to go to meetings, you got to go to commitments, and now you got to do this. And I was like, oh, like, I just want to run. I just want to run. I don't want to be here. I want to run.
Had you ever been to a meeting prior to this?
No, I had never been.
Wow.
Never been.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing too. Like I've been helping people with, addiction issues for most of my adult life, but I didn't know what I didn't know about addiction until I faced my own.
Mm.
So I could be compassionate toward people. I could be loving toward people, unless it was my family, which I was miserable a lot of times because of all the hours I was working. So, my family would be like, oh, let's go to this store, let's go do this. And I'm like, I don't want to be around anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So that was part of it too. I was not a good person even when I wasn't drinking sometimes, especially with my family. I was just mean, which is not me.
Mm.
But, I didn't know enough to change or didn't want to change or, again, being prideful. So 6 days into the rehab, there was a gentleman that was talking, and the story that he said was that he was in a room full of people, and the person at the front drew a picture of a boat, and then he walked around the room and he gave everyone 2 straws. And so they're all trying to figure out, like, what are these straws for? So he tells them and says, listen, with each straw, it gets you a seat on the boat. You can do what you want with them. You can keep them. You can give them away, whatever you want to do. I'm going to leave the room for a couple minutes, let you decide, and then I'll come back. So the gentleman comes back and looks around. So he asks him, where are your straws? Oh, well, I gave 1 straw to that pregnant lady, and, because I care, I want her to live. She's got a baby and stuff. And he's like, well, what'd you do with the other straw? Oh, I gave it to that guy over there. I think he needs it. And the guy said, well, I'm not going to curse, but he said BS. He's like, you don't love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just went into this thing about, you had 2 chances to get on this lifeboat, and you gave it away. And you're saying that you care about other people. You don't love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that triggered the biggest cry I've ever had in my entire life.
Wow.
And I bawled in front of a room full of strangers. Like, I didn't even cry like this when my parents passed away. The last time I had cried almost like that was when my grandfather died in 1988. I was really close with him. But that cry allowed me to surrender to my higher power.
Mm-hmm.
That cry and that release allowed me to start healing and to start understanding what was going on and what, in my addiction.
Well, that's a powerful story.
Yeah.
So it's a turning point for you.
Yeah, it was a huge turning point. And being in rehab, I had to take a lot of anger from my wife with the phone calls and such. She had every right to be mad.
Mm-hmm.
She had every right to be upset. Her feelings are, very valid. And I wanted to just die. Not that I had a plan to hurt myself or whatever. I couldn't believe that I had done all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But it was, there was some back and forth about, oh, I want you back for Christmas. You've never been away for Christmas. Never been away for New Year's. And, I just prayed on it. And, I told my counselor or my clinician, I said, hey, I really kind of want to go home for Christmas. She's like, no, you need to stay. And then I went back and read more, of my Bible. And I was like, yep, I need to stay. I need to stay for the whole thing. So I got out of rehab, and I had lost the number for Dominic, my CCAR coach. And guess who calls me? So that started that relationship.
That's really a great point that, when we've hired coaches, that they came up with that protocol, that we would call people and stay in touch with them. Mm-hmm. It's not just like get you to Rhode Island and in your rehab, but no, let's stick with you because we know you're coming back and
mm-hmm.
you might need some support. So
and I absolutely
that's a heartwarming story to hear. That's cool.
Yeah, I absolutely needed the support because I didn't know. Again, I didn't know what I didn't know about recovery. Mm-hmm. And even now, I know I still have a lot to learn. But getting out of rehab, starting to go to church, really having a better relationship with my higher power led me to get baptized February 16th of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And then a month later, the world shuts down. Mm-hmm. COVID.
Yeah.
So I'm fresh out of rehab, fresh into recovery, and nothing.
Right.
So my lifeline was Dominic.
Mm-hmm.
And so he kept in contact with me quite often. And I wasn't a Zoom person. Like, I wasn't a computer person. I didn't know how to do this, and no meetings are available. The only meeting I did get to go to, it was horrible for me. Everybody was in there was just like, oh, we're nothing but alcoholics. We're never going to be any different. Very just negative. And I'm like, wait a minute, this can't be how it is. Really? Like, are you kidding me? Because that's not how it was in rehab with the commitments we had. Mm-hmm. So why is it like this? And I didn't know that you need to go to different meetings to kind of figure out where you fit in.
Yeah.
And I couldn't because COVID shut down everything.
Mm-hmm.
So then Dominic got transferred to the Department of Correction, CCAR's Department of Correction program, and he put me in contact with Dimitri Bakis. Mm-hmm. So he's my coach also. So I just kind of did my thing. Like, I was doing odd jobs to, I got fired from my job because of the DUI. They let me go March of 2020. So yeah, COVID, losing my job, and talking to Dominic, talking to Dimitri. They had asked me, like, hey, you ever think about being a recovery coach? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no. However, and so, they kind of coached me. They did coach me mm-hmm. To apply.
I'm super pleased that you're part of the team. So congratulations. I know when the day you started, I told you I believe in you.
Yes.
Now more so than ever, after I've heard your story. Everything you thought that were liabilities, right, are part of your resume.
Yeah.
And I can see you're a gifted, skilled communicator. Just continue what you're doing and it'll work out.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.